Adios, amigo. Here we are again for Candid Frank Live. Let's see if I can get the microphone looking straight. Nah, it doesn't look straight. It's okay. I'm Candid Frank. He's Aaron William Freeland. And of course, today was a beautiful day. I had the Mustang out. I had the convertible. And I went for a little drive to pick up Bev. She went to get blood tests. When you get old, you do a lot of testing. They test everything multiple times. And all you can hope for is that the tests come out positive. And by positive, I mean good news. How are things with you?
Oh, things are doing all right. I'm getting into the same sort of cycle of blood testing here every 3 months or so. I'm back in there for a quick oil check just to see if everything's functioning as it should, and away we go.
I'm getting my transmission checked.
Well, that sounds like a fair thing to be doing.
Well, I think my body sometimes gives me the gears. That's why I'm getting my transmission. I just made that up. That was stupid. Sorry. I couldn't resist. It was one I just made up. I feel bad, but not.
The good news is the NHL is gearing up for playoffs, and I'm actually in the middle of mine as well, funnily enough. I've actually got a playoff game tonight at 8:15, which means I need to get out of here at around 7-ish. Just
all right. We'll get you out of here by 5 to 7-ish.
That'll work even better.
Right? We'll get you out of here by 5 to 7-ish. So it's over, Aaron. All but the crying, because the crying's going to last all summer. They got one more. There's one more accomplishment they can make. There's one left. Just one accomplishment left.
We'll get to that in a few minutes, but I think it's actually
let's talk about the finale.
I think it's kind of fitting that a goalie that the Toronto Maple Leafs cut at the start of the season is the one that ended up putting the final nail in their coffin for the end of the season. Coincidentally, it was James Reimer who led the Ottawa Senators to a 3-1 win over the Leafs. Nylander actually managed to end Reimer's shutout bid 8 minutes into the third period when he got his 30th goal of the season. Good on him for that. It's the 6th time in his NHL career that he's got at least 30 goals. The good news is the club is going to finish 28th in the NHL standings. That puts him in the top 5 for the 2026 draft. So there's that. And Ottawa gets to end on a positive note heading into the playoffs, where they're going to be facing off against Carolina in the first round. So that's going to definitely be interesting. I'm going to be having a little bit of fun with my friends. They're all they're all Ottawa Senators fans, and I'm going out to meet them tomorrow afternoon before the game actually starts. But I'm going to wear my Carolina Hurricanes bunch of jerks T-shirts because it's the same color as this is the Ottawa Senators, black, white, and red. We'll see if any of them pick up on it before I go to the Marlies game.
They might. You never know. But then again, they're Ottawa fans, so you're not really sure.
Exactly.
It's iffy. Wait, did I really say that out loud? I was supposed to only think that. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud.
You know what? Honestly, inside voice, outside voice, it's all a blur for me these days.
I think I don't know. I think I'm transitioning into Aaron 2. Anyway, hockey begins with the letter H, and somebody just got hired. His name is Meta, but he's the hockey Meta, so he has an H in his name. The other Meta has no H in it, but he is data-driven, and he's been hired by the New Jersey Devils, and he is a New Jersey native and a guy prospectively sought after by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, this is good news. It means that Brendan Shanahan is no longer in the running. He had been linked to them as taking over as part of their lead of hockey operations. But according to what we've heard, the fact that Meta's been hired now means that Brendan Shanahan will not be part of the executive structure overseeing him. A few weeks ago, reports had surfaced that Meta was granted permission to speak to the Leafs regarding their front office vacancy, but it looks like, what with all the chaos and the confusion as to who gets to do the hiring and the search that was started by the Maple Leafs, it looks like New Jersey got to him first.
I think he might have had a preference going home. We've seen that here in Toronto.
Reed. Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Tavares. And apparently he's going to be among the Canadians playing in the World Championship. And he's going to find a lot of company. Trey Living, Dubas, Spezza.
Yeah, I mean, he's played almost 70 games between the juniors and seniors when it comes to Team Canada. So it wouldn't be surprising if he was on the team again. Um, this is going to be going May 15th to 30th in Switzerland. The team is actually managed by Brad Treliving, Jason Spezza on loan from the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey office while they're making their playoff run. And teammate and fellow World Championship veteran Morgan Riley is interested as well. Logan Thompson, one of the 3 goalies at the recent Olympics for Canada, told reports in Washington on Thursday his workload needs some recovery times and he's declined the invite. Toms Wilson and Dylan Strome also indicated they're going to be taking some time off. There's also the possibility that Maple Leaf winger Easton Cowan could potentially be there as well, all depending on how far the Marlies get in the playoffs. As for other Leafs, Matty Nyes and Joseph Woll will likely get consideration for Team USA, but Nyes has been trying to rest a sore knee all season. Woll says that he is interested, but doesn't want to distract from the Leafs. So, with regards to William Nylander, he's been kind of coy about joining Team Sweden again.
He'll be there.
But Kalle Järnkrok has also said that he's declined to take interviews, so we're not, 100% sure. He last won gold for Sweden at about a decade ago, so we'll see if that actually happens.
Well, Järnkrok doesn't have a contract, so going
Right.
there without a contract is risky. For
It's also
Nylander,
I was going to say it's a great chance for him to showcase himself as well as an opportunity to pick up with another team. So,
but he'd have to also be healthy, and that's something that's of concern for a player. So Easton Cowan might go. That's great news. Why would the Leafs draft pick scenario be nightmarish, I wonder?
Well, this is what not a lot of people want to talk about.
Why are we talking about it, Aaron?
Well, I need to bring it out into the universe so the universe can spite me and make sure it doesn't happen. That's basically what we need. So here's the thing: the fact that they're in the bottom 5 / top 5 for when it comes to the NHL draft now. If it ends up in the top 5. The Bruins will still get a pick. They just won't get the pick this year. And arguably this year is one of the better years when it comes to the draft. So they're anxious to keep their first round pick for this year because it'd be kind of handy to have it. If they do end up keeping that pick, then they have to give an unprotected 2027 first rounder to Boston. So the Leafs at this point are hoping that because they've done so poorly this year, they hope they do better next year so that Boston gets a worse pick. But in the case of a nightmare season where something like this happens again, which is highly unlikely, because let's be honest, this Leafs team on paper is a lot better than they have actually performed.
Well, the team could be ruined by management. It still could be something they could do. I'm not sure, but it's what the logic basically says. Bird in the hand is a really good pick this year. Take it. Don't worry about the one in the bush, which is next year.
Exactly, because if you move too quickly, you could scare the bird in the bush. So it's better to have the one in the hand.
Now, Matthews is non-committal as far as continuing his career as a Maple Leaf.
Yeah, this was a bit of a surprise. Now I know they did ask him during the locker room clear-out day. He did show up with a brace on his surgically repaired left knee. And he said, I can't predict the future. There's 2 seasons left on his deal. There are steps that are going to have to take place. You've got to hire new leadership and management and stuff like that. So I don't really know. I can't really predict the future. They went from the Atlantic Division Championships in 24-25 last to this dead last pretty much this season. This is the first time in Matthews' career that he's actually missed the playoffs. That ends the Leafs' 9 consecutive year run. I know Matthews did have a down year with 27 goals and 26 assists in 60 games. But it's one of those things where he was a little bit held back by injury and also by deployment. He saw a lot more defensive zone faceoffs than he did offensive zones. I think had he been deployed better in that regard, he might have had a bit of a better season. But, as it currently stands, there is still a lot of work for this Maple Leafs team to do with regards to the front office before Matthews can really finalize everything and fully commit.
So I was talking to you on the phone about the kind of person that has to somehow appear in the Leaf management world. This is before I knew what I'm asking you about now. Uh, I mentioned that they need to have somebody that can emanate calm and a positivity to counteract the negativity that the last 10 years has brought to the feet of the Maple Leafs and the fans. And I'm reading here, it says Sundin linked to possible Leafs return. Now, while we don't know what he could do, what he could do for the team as a member of the management team, but there's talk that he could be part of the Leaf management team. Aaron, could that aura help the Leafs in their construction?
Well, Chris Johnston was on it first, reporting that Sundin was in Toronto to meet with the club regarding a potential role with new management. Now, this isn't the first time that he's been linked with the team. He did attend the Leafs training camp in 2024, where he spent nearly a week engaging in activities that went far beyond your typical alumni experiences. He traveled with the rosters to an exhibition game against the Canadians. Following Brendan Shanahan's firing in 25, many believed his position might be replaced by a role that's not as involved in day-to-day roster decisions as a general manager would be, but he would still be connected with the team. That opinion has now shifted with the firing of Brad Treliving. I know Sundin typically prefers quiet life. I know that back in 2023, when the club visited Stockholm for the Global Series, they had asked him about it then. He didn't say yes, but he also didn't say no. So the thinking might be here, bring him in as sort of a figurehead to act as a buffer in between ownership and the players and the fans and the general manager. That way you can sort of rebuild a little bit of the goodwill that you've lost through what happened.
Be the shiny object. Look over here. Yes. Look over here.
The thing is, this could all go south really quickly if he turns out to be the dartboard figure, as opposed to just the jangly keys. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that, and I gotta say the irony of it is stupendous. It's Stanley Cup-ish, the irony. It's championship irony, because when Sundin was a Maple Leaf, he was asked to allow himself to be traded, and he said no. And that was when the Leafs they were real bad, and they had a bunch of guys, and they wanted to get some picks, and they wanted to kickstart the rebuild, right? And he said no, and which led to a lot of other Leafs, the other of the 4 or 5 or whatever it was there, the Muskoka 5, I think they were, that wouldn't allow themselves to be traded, which caused the Leafs to basically really hit the skids. Ironically, he may be a guy that's present when Austin Matthews and Nylander get asked to waive their no trade. So it's going to be interesting. Let's go over to baseball and the Toronto Blue Jays. And I don't know, this team's not, I know they got injuries. I know there's stuff going on, but Aaron, this really is a team in trouble at this point, unable to put the brakes on losing streaks. And they won one series, the first one. I think they lost 7 after that, 7 or 8. I forget how many they lost count.
Yeah, they this is their 5th straight series loss so far this season. What with the update coming from Alejandro Kirk, the fact that he needed a pin in his thumb and he's out 4 to 6 weeks. The team had been relying on Tyler Heineman, who admittedly he's batting 300 so far. Brandon Valenzuela is batting just 174 behind the dish. But Heineman started experiencing back spasms. Apparently, he hasn't been asked to carry a team for as long as the Blue Jays decided they were going to be asking him to carry it. So they've signed 26-year-old backstop Adam Hackenberg, who was drafted out of high school by the Kansas City Royals in 2018, but attended Clemson instead and re-entered the draft in 21, where he was taken by the Chicago White Sox. Across 5 major league seasons, he's averaging .238. He had shown some promise by the White Sox, but unfortunately, Ryan Teal and Edgar Huero ended up replacing him, as it were, in the depth chart. So he got released late last month. Given the likelihood of Teal and Huero battling for playing time in Charlotte, there's really no role for Adam in AAA currently in 2025. So he's been assigned to the Blue Jays AAA affiliate, the Buffalo Bison, where he could become an important depth option. But, at least they've got something else there just in case they do need him.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Okamoto.
Yeah, he's been having a bit of a rough start. Obviously, he says, I obviously want to hit more. But over the long course of the season, I know there's going to be ups and downs. That's no different from when he was playing in Japan. It's just a little bit of a lull right now. But unfortunately, he's currently hitting 200 with 2 home runs and 24 strikeouts in 65 at-bats. So it looks like Major League pitching has been somewhat of a challenge for him. Now, this isn't necessarily surprising because MLB is a different beast from Japan. But it doesn't sound like he's too worried at this point. He says he's ready to face all of these challenges head on, no matter where they put him. And he was out playing first the other night. I have a lot of confidence that he'll be able to do just that.
The last game the Jays lost, there were 3 really weird singles, bouncing the infield. So the Brewers did it a different way, but kind of similar. 3 bunts and they beat the Jays.
Yeah, that was a really interesting 7th inning, I gotta say. Aaron Ashby faced only 2 batters and got the final out in the 7th to take the major league lead and wins for the Brewers. Toronto stranded the potential tying run at 3rd when Kazuma Okamoto grounded out against Angel Zerpa, who earned his 2nd save. Vladdy had a leadoff single and reached 3rd on a pair of grounders to the right-hand side, but then Milwaukee managed to snap a 6-game skid Wednesday by scoring twice in the 8th while hitting just 1 ball out of the infield. And then they did it again the next day when they hit those 3 bunts in a row. Toronto did manage to score on a safety squeeze, but, it's going to be difficult for them. They're heading to Arizona for a 3-game series. Eric Lauer is going to be starting, and Michael Soroka is going to be pitching for Arizona on Friday, while the Brewers are headed off to Miami for a 3-game series. They haven't named a starting pitcher for Friday yet, but Jansen Junk will start for Miami. So they've got to improve their short game defense, especially when it comes to the infield. I watched part of that. They probably should have had at least one of those as an out, but it just didn't seem to work out for them. So short game defense is definitely something they need to work on. And at this point here, the injuries just aren't really helping them. So, they've got to be a little more careful of that.
So are the Cavs in danger of getting eliminated by the Raptors? Their series begins at 1:00 on Saturday for anyone that's interested to watch.
Well, I mean, they're probably better today than they were at the start of the season, all things considered, but neither version of these Cavaliers is better than they were at various points of last season's 64-win campaign. Despite averaging 54 wins over the past 4 seasons, Cleveland has only won 2 total series in 3 previous trips to the playoffs in the Donovan Mitchell era. And that's not quite good enough, given how good he's been and how much talent he has around him. The Raptors did win the season series against the Cavs 3-0, but that was without Harden in the lineup. So that makes a big difference there. Cleveland started 41 different lineups this year. I don't think they've had the same 5 guys starting the floor more than once. None of them have started more than 6 games together. It's really tough to say. The Raptors now obviously would like nothing more than to reach a second round of the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs since 2022. They haven't won a series since 2020. Everybody from the 2019 title team is gone. Van Vliet, Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Jeremy Lin. In their place is another just as pricey rotation, but that's Scotty Barnes, Brendan Ingram, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and Jacob Puddle. They won 30 games together in the entire this most recent season. That just seems to be a sticking point. But if they can't actually get it together, the Raptors could very well take this.
They gotta be healthy. Right now, they're working their way towards healthy. They haven't played the Cleveland Cavaliers with Harden on the team. So James Harden's a pretty good addition for Cleveland. So they're a better team than the Raptors have played, and we'll see how that goes. Let's go to the Canadian Football League, and a Canadian quarterback was signed by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Yeah, so they've signed Taylor Elgersma. He's 6'5", 227 pounds, out of Wilfrid Laurier. He was selected in the second round, 18th overall of the 2025 CFL draft. He was most recently with the Birmingham Stallions, there we go, of the UFL, but didn't see any action due to work visa issues. So that's an interesting wrinkle. He was signed by the Packers on May 12th of 2025, appeared in training camp and 3 NFL preseason games, completing 16 of 23 passes for 166 yards, but was released by the Packers after training camp. He was a U Sports first-team All-Canadian in 2024 and a second-team All-Canadian in 2023.
Riders signed a global kicker.
Yeah, they've signed Alex Hale. He was signed with the Green Bay Packers as an undrafted free agent in August of 2024 before he was released in July of 2025. As an Australian, he has no issues with kicking a weird-shaped ball, so that's definitely a positive for them. In his senior year, when he became the primary place kicker, he had 37 kickoffs for 2,200 yards and an average of 61.5 yards per kickoff. So I think that he should fit in nicely with them.
Very nicely. Thank you very much. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, totally different team with Mace as the head coach. They released Aju, who was suspended 6 games for off-the-field behavior.
Yeah, he's going to be missing all of the preseason games as well as a minimum of 6 regular season games for violating the CFL's gender-based violence and harassment policy. Back in November of 2025, he was accused of engaging in aggressive and unwelcome physical contact with a lot of women at a restaurant in Regina. This action constituted a breach of the CFL's gender-based violence and harassment policy. His reinstatement process will include a minimum of 15 mandatory counseling sessions conducted by a gender-based violence expert, a psychological assessment by another independent expert, and a meeting with Commissioner Johnson. Upon satisfactory completion of each step, he will be eligible for reinstatement. If he is unable to satisfactorily complete any step in the process, the CFL reserves the right to modify the discipline.
Brett Lother has a new home. It's in Ottawa.
Yeah, so Brett Lother is going back to the Red Blacks. He played 118 games in the CFL with the Roughies and Ticats. He's originally from Truro. Played in 16 games for the Riders last season, converting 39 of 54 in field goals, with a long from 59, while also handling kickoff duties. For his career, he's converted 301 to 370, which is a really good record. You know what? The Red Blacks are going to need somebody like that to put the ball through the uprights for them. So congratulations to him for that one.
Excellent. Let's talk about the Lions signing an American defensive back.
So they've signed CJ Colden, 5'11", 185. He spent parts of the last 2 seasons with the Red Blacks. After signing with Ottawa in September, he appeared in 1 game with 7 defensive tackles and a forced fumble. He spent time with the Minnesota Vikings as a non-drafted free agent in 2023 and was in the practice roster up until November of last year. Good for them on picking him up. He's definitely, I think, going to be helpful for them as they continue to try to get back to the playoffs.
Lions also sign a receiver.
Yeah, they've signed Silas Bolden. They've also signed linebacker Parker McKenna. Bolden is moving north after a training and camp appearance with the Vikings and a stint on the Houston Texans practice roster in 2025. McKenna played for Portland State from 2020 to 2023. He played 25 games with the Cougars, played at Portland State, so that's good. They've also released national defensive lineman Anthony Bennett and national offensive lineman Tyler Packer.
Let's go to the Ticats, and they signed a new running back.
So they've signed American running back Micah Bernard. He most recently spent time with the Tennessee Titans in May and the New England Patriots in August of last year. He played collegiate at the University of Utah from 2019 to 2024. He recorded 421 rushing attempts for 2,217 yards and 11 touchdowns. So he might be a little bit of offensive punch that they need.
Let's talk about offensive linemen and talk about the Alouettes.
So the Owls signed offensive lineman Kenan Panfiloff. They've announced that he signed him to a 2-year deal. He started 30 games and appeared in 41 games with the University of Montana Grizz from 23 to 25. He landed on the Stats Perform second team, the FCS Central Sports Illustrated third team, and earned an honorable mention from the Associated Press. They've also announced that American offensive lineman Arlington Hambright was retiring, and American defensive lineman Chidozie Nwakwo was being released as well.
Well, let's go back to the National Hockey League, and we have a couple of Canadian teams still in the hunt, and they, along with the rest of the teams in the playoffs, have the teams they're going to play set.
Yeah. So I'm just going to run through quickly what's going on in the West. You got Colorado versus Los Angeles. You've got Dallas versus Minnesota. You've got Vegas versus Utah. Edmonton versus Anaheim. I can only assume that the Oilers versus Ducks series is going to be sponsored by Dawn. Then you've got Buffalo and Boston, Tampa Bay and Montreal. That's going to be an interesting series. You got Carolina playing Ottawa, so it's a bunch of jerks playing a team led by a jerk. And then you've got Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia, which is the Battle of Pennsylvania. So that's going to be interesting as well.
That's going to be a very interesting battle. Let's talk about the Habs. Last game, they lost to the Flyers, and that helped them finish third in their division.
Yeah. Now they were kind of hoping to be able to finish with. Pardon my tongue here. It's just tripping here. They were hoping to finish a little bit higher in the standings, but you know what? Third will serve them well. They lost 4-2 to the Flyers at Xfinity Mobile Arena on Tuesday. So unfortunately, this information is a little out of date, but that's okay. It was a pretty clean game, actually, all things considered. Philly had 5 penalties. Montreal only had 2. Philadelphia fell behind. Jumped out to a lead in the first period, 2-0. Montreal scored their 2 in the second, but Philly capped it off with goals in the second and the third period to take the win.
Well, they're going to have to figure out a way, the Canadians, to ignore Perry. Perry's a bit of a S disturber.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where this is a guy that they actually had on their team at one point. He also played for Chicago and Dallas, and this is his second go-round with Tampa. So they're aware of who he is. They're aware of what he does and what he can do. It seems that I think Lane Hudson had the right idea in their game that they played on April 9th. He basically ignored Perry, which upset Corey a great deal. But at the end of the day, isolating and ignoring him is going to be the best thing that they can do for themselves. He may not be fast anymore. He may not be able to get around the ice like he used to, but he's still going to be a factor.
He'll figure out a way to be important. Ottawa had a really tough season with injuries, departures, and one thing that's been a strong suit for them, it's been their minor system. A lot of guys that came up did really well to keep the team at least with the opportunity of making the playoffs.
Yeah, and unfortunately, to the detriment of the Belleville Senators, this depth actually came in key for the Ottawa Senators. Lassie Thompson was one of the call-ups. They hoped to find in Lassie Thompson what Jordan Spence appears to have become. Certainly, Thompson hasn't looked out of place in the 11 games he played. He logged an average of 13:23 in ice time in important games. Dennis Gilbert was another one. He was acquired in exchange for Maxence Gannett in compensation for the loss of Donovan Sobrano on waivers to the Florida Panthers. Denny Gilbert also succumbed to injury, unfortunately, but he functioned effectively with Nicholas Matampalo in the bottom pair role before that. Carter Yakemchuk played a pivotal role in his regular season debut against the Detroit Red Wings. His no-look assist to Tim Stützle has certainly helped impress fans. Cameron Crotty actually became the 13th defenseman to suit up for the Senators this season when Yakemchuk, funnily enough, suffered a concussion. So even the guys that were bringing up from the AHL were getting injured too. Yeah, they may not have made the playoffs, but that's because they had to serve at the pleasure of the parent company. 13 different Belleville Senators actually suited up for Ottawa throughout the season. So, they'll certainly get some credit, depending on how far the Senators manage to make it in the playoffs.
Well, they can return to that role again. The opportunity will arise again during the playoffs if they get injured. And they'll have a little bit of experience to play with the team and understand the system and not be, thrown to the wolves, if you will. Celebrini set a Sharks record in their 6-1 win.
Yeah, he set a franchise record for points in the season after a goal and a pair of assists in a 6-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets on Thursday. He finished the season with 45 goals and 70 assists for 115 points, which is one more than Joe Thornton's total in 2006-2007. Both of them played 82 games. William Eklund also had a goal and 2 assists. Will Smith notched a goal and an assist, and Colin Graf, Igor Chernyshov, and Michael Misa of the Mississauga Steelheads also scored for the Sharks. Klingberg contributed 3 assists. Nedeljkovic stopped 25 shots for San Jose, who haven't made the playoffs for 7 consecutive seasons. The Jets are now the 5th NHL team to win the President's Trophy for the best regular season record and not qualify for the playoffs the next season. They finished 26th with 82 points. The last time they missed the playoffs was 2021-2022. So this is an opportunity for Winnipeg to sit back, evaluate where they're at, see if they need to tweak their lineup. This is certainly a vote of confidence for the San Jose Sharks. With the way that they performed over the past season, it definitely looks like they're trending back towards getting into the playoffs again.
They didn't make the playoffs, and the Stanley Cup champs didn't make the playoffs. It kind of throws a little bit of shade in the problem the Leafs have. Leaf fans have a lot less to complain about.
For sure. I was sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your thought.
I didn't have anything else to add. We're good.
Okay. Let's talk about the Flames and Perek.
So, Zane Perek snapped a 1-1 tie with a goal at 6:08 of the third period to lift the Flames to a 3-1 season-ending win over the playoff-bound LA Kings on Thursday. Arseny Sergeyev made his first career NHL start, stopping 27 of 28 shots for the Flames. Morgan Frost opened the scoring at 5:21 of the second on the power play with his 22nd of the year. Matt Vigridden and Matt Coronado picked up the assists. Quentin Byfield responded for the Kings less than 2 minutes later with his 24th of the season. Joel Farabee netted his 20th goal in the season as he sealed the win with an empty netter in the final minute. And Calgary's Ryan Strome wrapped up his campaign with a 2-assist effort. Forsberg made 18 saves for the Kings, who learned during the game that they have to settle for the second wildcard seed and a playoff date with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yay!
The one takeaway from all of this is at least they're not playing the Oilers again.
Yeah, and the one take also is that the Oilers aren't playing them, so that works out fine for us Canadian hockey fans. Let's talk about the Knuckleheads.
So at the end of the day, they managed to close out the season with a 6-1 loss to the Oilers. It wasn't entirely unexpected, let's be honest, and it was, I'll be square with you, a bit of a laugher. Drew O'Connor registered his first NHL fight. Ty Muller became the 509th player to score a goal for the Canucks. Marcus Pettersson, Philip Hronik, and Drew Connor are the only players to skate in all 82 games for Vancouver this season. Edmonton jumped out to a 4-1 lead in the first period with goals by Szymanski, Savoie, who had 3, and assists from Connor McDavid, and Curtis Douglas. Vancouver broke up the scoring a little bit at 12-10 when Ty Miller got a goal on an assist from Curtis Douglas and Kevin Lankinen. And after that, it was all Oilers. They scored at 16:46 of the second period. That was Nuge from Hyman and Connor McDavid. And then in the third period, Edmonton sealed it. Carlton Dack scored with a goal from Connor Murphy. Different Connor this time. And Darnell Nurse.
And McDavid won his 6th Art Ross scoring championship. Good for him.
I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody, really. So
No, but this is where it all comes. Like everything he's done and thought of is now he's on the throes of what he hopes is finally the year that he wins a Stanley Cup. Do I want to see him win a cup? Absolutely. Two reasons. He's on a Canadian team, and I don't think there's a player. I'm not saying other players don't want it, but I don't think there's a player that wants it more than Connor McDavid.
Oh, and based on everything that he's been saddled with and the expectations that have been levied against him, I would be so happy if he were to be able to pull it off this year. That's one of those things, finally living up to expectations and fulfilling that goal. They got to go through the Ducks first, though. So that's the toughest part, I think, of it all, is they do need to make sure that they get out of that first round. Otherwise, they're going to be in serious trouble.
And then, of course, the Oilers are going to be in that Dawn dishwashing liquid championship.
Yep. And honestly, they finished the season. The Oilers finished the season with 93 points. The Ducks finished with 92. So we've got a 2-versus-3 series going on here. And in the Dawn Bowl, it's going to be some interesting matchups. This is going to be Edmonton's third attempt at reaching the finals for the third year in a row. If this keeps up, they'll pretty soon be on the same level as the Buffalo Bills when it comes to getting to the finals with no joy if they can't salt one away here.
And both are arriving at this series from opposite poles. We've got Anaheim, a team that didn't make the playoffs, has been very bad the past few years. And you've got the Oilers, who've been to 2 straight Stanley Cup finals. It's going to make for an interesting series. The experience of the Edmonton Oilers, I think, Aaron, will give them an advantage. I'm going with all the Canadian teams to win. So I say that for the most part seriously, but with a smidge of hoping the Canadian teams move on to the next round, which would be awesome. But that's neither here or there. Our final story today is the Canucks indications are that they fired their general manager, Patrick Allvin. Is there anything to support that secret message being put out there?
The report of the firing was actually from Thomas Rose of the Swedish site Aftonbladet. Allvin has been the general manager of the Canucks since January 26, 2022, and was the first Swedish GM in NHL history. Now, they played 368 regular season games while Allvin was GM. During his tenure, the Canucks posted a 173, 150, and 45 record, and only qualified for the playoffs once in the 4 years that he was there. That was back in 2024. As for this season, it went off the rails for the Canucks, really. Vancouver finished with the worst record in the league. They'll have the best odds of selecting first overall heading into the draft lottery. On top of finishing 32nd, the Canucks made some significant moves, which included trading away Quinn Hughes. Got rid of JT Miller. Brock Besser's gone. So this is one of those situations where I don't really think they had any other recourse at the top of that. I think it was just about that time. So the question now becomes, who does Vancouver get, and are they going to be able to snipe the Leafs? So that's
the next challenge that they're up against. I have a complaint, and I have the same complaint every year: the playoff schedule. I know there's no home games for the Canadian teams. Well, sorry, Edmonton has a home game, but none of them are playing on Saturday night at 7:00.
Yeah, it's tough. It's genuinely tough. I mean, when you look at the schedule here, you got to ask yourself, I don't know what they're thinking. Some of it is NHL arena availability. It's tough when, there were actually a couple of concerts in Philadelphia that had to be rescheduled.
Wow.
A few years back in Tampa Bay, Garth Brooks had to reschedule 3 nights of his show because the Lightning were in the playoffs. So it's not like this is unusual, but at the same time, a little bit more consideration needs to be given to the teams that make the playoffs and the scheduling that goes on around it. Realistically, these buildings can't keep dates open. They do need to be filled constantly in order for them to make money. But at the same time, oh my God, my dudes, like, you've got to do something.
I love tradition. What can I tell you? Okay, Aaron. The last thing on the Maple Leafs is Nylander, Matthews, draft picks. Don't hold any salary. Get draft picks. I've seen some crazy suggestions for trades. Listen, if they can each bring 2 first-round draft picks to Toronto, they can bring that and a couple of young, hopeful players. I think the Leafs should jump on that chance as far as I'm concerned. It has to be a reset. The same players will not change the outcome, and that's just a reality of things. That's my final word on the Maple Leafs. What's yours?
So my thought is you have 25% of your salary cap tied up in 2 players. That's represented by 34, and that's represented by 88. Nylander is signed all the way through until 2032. Matthews is only signed until 2027, 28. Do you gut it out with Austin Matthews sucking up 14% of your salary cap, or do you try to move him and maybe try to move Nines, who has no movement protection either?
I have no interest in keeping Matthews for a very important reason. He's not going to be here anyway. He's not going to stay here. He's going to move. He's going to move. Anybody who thinks that he's going to stay in Toronto to be a part of a rebuild is I don't know what they're smoking, but and as I said at the beginning of this year, and as I will repeat at the beginning of next year, for Matthews to be effective with the Toronto Maple Leafs, he has to generate offense, and he just can't. He's a trigger man. He needs some really solid talent beside him, and unfortunately, sucks up too much of the cap, where they can't afford to get somebody that he needs to make him play well. And him and Nylander don't have chemistry. I don't think anyway. They've been here together for how many years? And I've never really seen them have chemistry other than when he was on the line with Marner, not Marner, with Tavares. No, it doesn't matter. I don't remember. I don't remember any time that Nylander's been effective with, and Matthews been effective together.
No, when Tavares was playing with Nylander, they had fantastic chemistry. When Austin Matthews was playing with McMahon, they had fantastic chemistry. Unfortunately, they got rid of McMahon. I think at some point here they kept the wrong players, but I'm not the GM, so what do I know? I'm just a fan. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. If I had my choice, and not because of what Marner's doing in Vegas, I would have kept Marner only because he makes players around him better. And he's not as reliant. Now, defensively, in the playoffs, he has his faux pas, right? He's not perfect. And yes, Matthews is a good defensive guy, but you don't pay a defensive guy $13.25 million a year. You can get a $4 or $5 million guy to be a dedicated defensive player. I mean, defense is not something that you have to have as an ability. It's work. It's a work ethic. And so it's easy to play defense, but to have a guy that can generate offense, like look at the kid in San Jose. Look at Celebrini. I mean, that's a $13 million player. At the end of the day, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting offseason.
Oh, definitely. I cannot wait to see where we go from here. Let the shenanigans on July 1st begin.
Absolutely. And the Leafs are hoping to draft early and big. Aaron's on his way to play some hockey.
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for doing this, Aaron. We're out on time.